All right, this is a challenge and real-world connection video on standard form of linear equations. I encourage you to pause this video and try these on your own, and then check back in and see how you did. Let me just show you what both problems are here so you can see them both if you're pausing it. Okay, so pause those, try those on your own, and then check back in a moment. But let's get going on these. So for the first one, we want to consider the generalized standard form equation of ax plus by equals c. And let's convert that into slope-intercept form and see if we can get a formula or a generalization for what the slope and y-intercept would be. So really that means solving for y, right? So let's start this out. Ax plus by equals c. We can subtract ax from both sides. And we will end up with by equals a negative ax plus c. And then lastly, this will be a short problem, we can divide both sides by b. Okay, and that turns into y, so we isolated for y, equals negative a over bx plus c over b. Okay, so what that really means is our slope, if we have this standard form equation right here, our slope is going to be negative a over b, and our y-intercept is going to be c over b. Okay, and so those are some quick rules of thumb that you can follow if you want to find the slope and the y-intercept given a standard form equation. What we're going to do for our next challenge real-world problem here, and maybe it's not so much of a real-world problem, it's really analyzing the different forms of linear functions we have, but we're going to try to think about pros and cons. And so we have y equals mx plus b. We have y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And then we have ax plus by equals c. So let's write some pros down. I'll write those down in green, okay? And I'm going to shorthand things a little bit here. Try to verbally go through things, but shorthand things a little bit. So it's easy to find a slope and y-intercept. It's easy to find slope for the point slope form, but y-intercept and then both characteristics for standard form are not easy to find. So those are a couple pros for some of the forms that we have. This one is easy to write. Standard form is easy to, it works well with word problems, excuse me. Especially word problems often involving you're buying a couple things, you're spending a particular total of money, and that total of money will be C, for example. Slope-intercept form, I think, works well with patterns, in the idea that something starts at a value of b, the y-intercept, and then changes by this amount each time, so it works well for patterns. And in terms of graphing, I think they are all relatively straightforward for graphing. I think that point slope and slope-intercept form are virtually identical in terms of graphing. You start at a particular point, it might be the y-intercept or it might be another point, and then you just apply the slope. And so you're going to go point, start at a point, and it might be the y-intercept, and then apply the slope to find a second point, connect, and make a line. For here, its graphing is pretty straightforward as well, and you're going to use what we call the intercept method. Okay, and so I showed you that in an earlier video. You're going to plug in 0 for x, find y, plug in 0 for y, and find x. You're going to find the two intercepts on the axes. Those are the things that kind of come to mind for me right now for advantages. Let's look at some disadvantages. I think y equals mx plus b, sometimes it can be tedious to find equation. Okay, so you have a couple points, you need to run through finding the slope. You need to plug that into y equals mx plus b, solve for b. So there are quite a few steps to find an equation. And that's also true for standard form, is you can't get the equation directly. Okay, for point slope form, it's probably easiest to find the equation. So I'm going to write that up in green. Of the three methods, it's easiest to find the equation. Okay, so once you get the slope, you can just write out the equation by choosing one of your points. I think another disadvantage, though, of point slope form is finding the y-intercept. It's not immediately available, and the y-intercept is not immediately available for standard form. And then additionally, the slope is not immediately available for standard form. We have to do a little calculation to find out what it is. And just looking things over, I think those are probably the pretty comprehensive set of pros and cons for the three different forms of linear equations. All right, we did it. We got through it. Good place to stop.